The desert rescue, the crimson sun blazed mercilessly across the endless wasteland, casting long shadows over the cracked earth where humanity's dreams had died decades ago. Jackson crouched behind a rusted vehicle frame, his weathered hands gripping makeshift binoculars as he watched the horrifying scene unfold before him. A sleek raider vehicle kicked up clouds of dust as it sped across the barren landscape, dragging something behind it on thick chains. Jackson's heart clenched when he realized what that something was: an alien being. Their iridescent skin torn and bloodied from being pulled across the rough terrain. The creature's limbs moved weakly, a sign of life that filled Jackson with both hope and rage. "Bastards," he whispered through gritted teeth, his scarred face hardening with determination. In this forsaken world, cruelty had become commonplace. But something about this particular act of brutality stirred, something deep within his chest. The alien's form was elegant despite the abuse, with flowing silver hair that caught the dying, light and skin that shimmered like moonlight on water. Even from this distance, Jackson could see the grace in those movements, the desperate attempts to shield themselves from the cutting sand and rocks. Without thinking, Jackson vaulted over his cover and sprinted toward the moving vehicle. His legs pumped hard against the scorching sand, years of survival training pushing him beyond normal human limits. The raiders hadn't noticed him yet, too focused on their cruel entertainment. As he drew closer, Jackson could hear the alien's labored breathing, could see the pain etched in those otherworldly features. Something twisted in his chest, not just anger at the injustice, but something else, something he hadn't felt in years. With practiced precision, Jackson hurled a makeshift explosive device at the vehicle's rear engine. The blast sent the craft spinning sideways, chains snapping as the alien tumbled free onto the sand. The raiders shouted in confusion and fury as their toy was suddenly liberated. Jackson slid across the sand to where the alien lay gasping. Up close, he could see delicate features that spoke of both strength and vulnerability. Their eyes a stunning shade of violet fixed on his with a mixture of fear and gratitude. "Can you move?" Jackson asked softly, extending his hand. The alien's skin was warm to the touch, smoother than silk, despite the cuts and bruises. "You helped me," came a melodic voice, tinged with an accent Jackson had never heard before. "Why?" "Because it was right," he replied simply, helping them to their feet. "What's your name?" "Nova," they whispered, leaning against him for support. The simple contact sent unexpected warmth through Jackson's body. Behind them, the raiders were regrouping, shouting orders, and preparing to give chase. Jackson looked into Nova's eyes and saw something that made his breath catch: trust, hope, and something deeper that neither of them was ready to name yet. "We need to run," he said, wrapping his arm around Nova's waist to support them. As they fled across the wasteland together, Jackson felt something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving, he was living for someone else. The hidden sanctuary beneath the scorched surface of the wasteland lay Jackson's greatest secret, a network of underground tunnels that had once served as maintenance passages for the old city. Now they formed his private sanctuary, a place where he could tend wounds and find peace away from the chaos above. Nova gasped softly as Jackson helped them down the narrow ladder, their injured body trembling with exhaustion. The cool air below ground provided immediate relief from the desert heat, and soft artificial lighting cast gentle shadows across the converted living space. "This is incredible," Nova whispered, violet eyes widening as they took in Jackson's makeshift home. Books lined makeshift shelves, salvaged artwork decorated the walls, and plants grew in carefully tended hydroponic gardens. Jackson guided Nova to a comfortable chair, his hands lingering perhaps longer than necessary as he helped them settle. "Let me look at those wounds," he said softly, gathering medical supplies from a well-organized cabinet as he cleaned the cuts on Nova's arms. Jackson found himself mesmerized by the way their skins seemed to heal faster than humanly possible. More than that, he was captivated by the trust Nova showed, allowing him to tend to them with such intimate care. "You're not what I expected from a human," Nova said quietly, wincing slightly as Jackson applied antiseptic to a deeper cut. Did you expect? Jackson asked, his voice gentle as he worked. Brutality? Selfishness? My people were taught that humans were ... double quotes. Nova paused, searching for words. That you were monsters. Jackson's hands stilled for a moment. Some of us are. Some of us remember what it means to be compassionate. Met Nova's gaze, seeing something vulnerable there. What happened to your people? Nova's expression clouded with pain far deeper than their physical wounds. Raiders. They came in the night, took everything. My family, my home, my entire settlement. I was the only one who escaped, and barely. Tears glistened in those stunning, violet eyes. Without thinking, Jackson reached up and gently wiped away a tear with his thumb. The contact sent electricity through both of them, and Nova leaned into his touch instinctively. I'm sorry, Jackson whispered. I lost everyone too. Why I live down here, away from all the madness? They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Jackson continuing his gentle ministrations, while Nova watched his face with growing fascination. There was something magnetic about this scarred, weathered human who had risked everything to save them. Why? Do you live like this? Nova asked eventually, gesturing to the beautiful space around them. You could join one of the settlements. Find people, because people disappoint you, Jackson replied, then looked up into Nova's eyes. Usually, the implication hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Nova felt their heart racing. As Jackson's fingers traced along their arm, ostensibly checking for more injuries but lingering with obvious care. Jackson, Nova whispered, their voice barely audible. Yeah, thank you for everything. Their faces were inches apart now, and Jackson could see the way Nova's lips parted slightly, could feel the warmth of their breath, as every instinct told him. To close that distance, to explore this connection that had sparked between them. But something held him back. Instead, he squeezed Nova's hand gently. Get some rest. We'll figure out what comes next in the morning. As Nova settled onto the comfortable bed Jackson had prepared, they watched him move around the space, noting the careful way he avoided looking at them too long, the tension in his movements. Something was building between them, something neither had expected but both desperately wanted to explore. Dawn brought the sound of vehicles above ground, their engines rumbling like hungry beasts as they searched for their escaped prey. Jackson jolted awake from where he'd been dozing in a chair, immediately alert to the danger. Nova was already sitting up, their enhanced hearing having detected the threats long before Jackson's human senses caught them. They found us, Nova whispered, fear creeping into their melodic voice. Not yet, Jackson replied grimly, moving to a hidden weapons cache. But they will soon. We need to move. As he gathered supplies, Nova stood and moved closer to him, their presence both comforting and distracting.
Axton.
There's something I haven't told you about my people. He paused in his preparations, looking at them with questioning eyes. We have abilities that humans don't. We're under extreme stress or... Nova's cheeks flushed with an otherworldly luminescence. When we feel strong emotions, we can manipulate energy itself. To demonstrate, Nova held out their hand, and a soft glow emanated from their palm, casting dancing light across Jackson's face. The display was beautiful and otherworldly, but it was the look of trust in Nova's eyes that truly took his breath away. That's why they want you, Jackson realized. Understanding flooding his features. Yes, and why we need to be very careful. My powers are tied to my emotions, and right now... Nova stepped closer, their glowing hand reaching up to touch Jackson's cheek. Right now I'm feeling things I've never felt before. The vehicles above grew louder, closer. Jackson knew they had minutes at most before discovery, but he couldn't look away from Nova's radiant features, couldn't ignore the way their touch sent fire through his veins. Nova, he breathed, his hand covering theirs against his cheek. I know this is crazy, Nova whispered. We barely know each other, but when you saved me, when you touched me, I felt something I thought was lost forever. The sound of boots on. The ground above broke the spell. Jackson grabbed Nova's hand and led them toward a hidden escape tunnel he'd prepared for emergencies. As they crawled through the narrow passage, Nova's powers provided gentle illumination, their skin glowing brighter. With each moment of danger, they emerged 2 miles away, in a cluster of twisted metal structures that provided temporary cover. Both were breathing hard, not just from exertion, but from the electricity that seemed to spark between them whenever they were close. "We can't keep running forever," Nova said, their glow dimming as they tried to control their emotions. "Then—" "We don't," Jackson replied, checking his weapons with practiced efficiency. "We find somewhere to make a stand." Nova grabbed his arm, their touch sending visible sparks of energy dancing across his skin. "Jackson, if something happens to you because of me—" He silenced them by pulling them close. Their bodies pressed together in the shadow of their hiding place. "Nothing's going to happen to either of us," he said fiercely. "I didn't save you just to lose you now." The intensity in his voice made Nova's powers flare brighter, their entire body radiating a soft, pulsing light that reflected in Jackson's eyes like captured starlight. "You're beautiful," he whispered, seemingly unable to stop himself. Nova's breath caught, their powers surging with the compliment, "Jax, N... ... Before either could say more, the sound of approaching vehicles forced them back into motion. As they ran hand in hand across the wasteland, Nova's powers leaving glowing footprints in the sand. Both felt the undeniable pull growing stronger between them. The chase was far from over. But something had fundamentally changed. They weren't just running from danger anymore, they were running towards something neither had dared hope for. The structure rose from the desert like a dream made manifest, its crystalline walls catching and refracting the dying light into rainbow patterns that danced across the sand. Jackson had never seen anything like its ancient alien architecture that seemed to pulse with its own inner life. "It's one of ours," Nova breathed, their voice filled with wonder and recognition. "A temple from the old civilization." As they approached the entrance, Nova's skin began to glow brighter, responding to some energy within the structure. Symbols along the doorway flickered to life at their presence, recognizing something in Nova's genetic signature. "It's welcoming." "You," Jackson observed, amazed by the display. "Us," Nova corrected softly, taking his hand. "It's welcoming us." Inside the temple was even more breathtaking. Walls covered in flowing scripts told stories of a civilization that had once spanned stars, while pools of luminescent water reflected images of Nova's ancestors. But it was the central chamber that took their breath away, a sanctuary, with a raised dais surrounded by gently glowing crystals. "This is where my people came to bond," Nova explained, their voice echoing in the sacred space. "Where they joined their lives together." The implications of those words hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Jackson felt his heart racing as he looked at Nova in the soft light, their beauty almost ethereal in this place of power. "Nova," he began, then stopped, overwhelmed by everything he wanted to say. "There's something else you should know," Nova said, moving to the center of the chamber. As they did, their glow intensified, and the crystals around them began to resonate. With harmonic tones, "I'm not just any survivor. I'm the last of the royal bloodline." Jackson stared at them, understanding flooding his mind. "That's why they're so desperate to capture you. My bloodline carries the key to reawakening our technology, to potentially rebuilding our civilization." Nova's voice carried the weight of generations. "But I never wanted that responsibility. I wanted to choose my own path." They turned to face him fully, their entire being radiating soft light that made the temple sing with ancient harmonies. "And I choose you, Jackson. If you'll have me." The declaration hit Jackson like a physical blow. In this sacred place, with Nova glowing like a living star before him, he felt something break open in his chest, all the walls he'd built, all the fear he'd carried, crumbling away. "Nova," he whispered, stepping toward them. "Your royalty. You could have anyone, rebuild anything. Why would you choose a broken human like me?" Nova reached for him, their glowing hands framing his scarred face with infinite tenderness. "Because you saw me being dragged through the dust and decided to stop it. Because you risked everything for a stranger. Because when I look at you, I see someone who understands loss, but hasn't let it destroy their capacity for love."
Their lips
met in the center of the ancient temple, and the moment they kissed, Nova's powers exploded outward in waves of pure light. The crystals sang, The walls pulsed with energy, and for a moment, the entire structure blazed like a beacon visible for miles. When they finally broke apart, both were glowing nova with their natural luminescence, and Jackson somehow sharing in that radiance through their connection. "I love you," Nova whispered against his lips. "I know it's impossible. I know it's crazy. But I love you too," Jackson replied, silencing their doubts with another kiss. "And we'll make it work somehow." Outside, the raiders were converging on their position, drawn by the temple's sudden blazing display. But inside the sanctuary, two hearts beat as one, ready to face whatever came next together. The royal bloodline had chosen love over duty, and the universe itself seemed to approve. The final stand, the temple's light had drawn every raider within 50 miles, and now they surrounded the ancient structure like vultures circling prey. Jackson checked his weapons one final time, while Nova stood at the temple's heart, their body crackling with barely contained energy. "There are too many of them," Jackson said grimly, counting the vehicles and armed figures visible through the crystal walls. "Then we don't fight them," Nova replied, their voice carrying new authority. "We stop them." The transformation in Nova was remarkable. No longer the wounded survivor Jackson had rescued. They stood like the royalty they truly were, powerful, determined, and blazing with inner light that made the temple walls pulse in rhythm with their heartbeat. "What are you going to do?" Jackson asked, though part of him already knew. "What I was born to do," Nova replied, extending their hand to him. "But I need your strength. Your love gives me focus." Without hesitation, Jackson took their hand, feeling Nova's energy flow through him like liquid starlight. Together, they walked toward the temple entrance as the raiders began their assault on the ancient structure. The crystal walls held against the first barrage of weapons fire. But cracks began to appear. The raiders' leader, a scarred woman with cybernetic implants, shouted orders through a megaphone. "Surrender the alien, and we'll let you live, human. Refuse, and we'll drag you both across the desert until there's nothing left." Nova's grip on Jackson's hand tightened, their combined energy building to critical levels. "Together?" they asked. "Together," Jackson confirmed. They stepped through the temple entrance, and Nova's power exploded outward in a wave that stopped every raider in their tracks. But this wasn't destruction, it was transformation. The energy washed over vehicles and weapons, not destroying them but rendering them inert, their power cells drained, their engines dead. The raiders found themselves facing two figures glowing like twin stars, untouchable and magnificent. Several dropped their useless weapons and fled into the desert. Others stood transfixed by the display of power beyond their comprehension. "You want the royal bloodline?" Nova's voice carried across the wasteland, amplified by their abilities. "Then know this: the age of raiders and scavengers is ending. We're going to rebuild this world, but we'll do it with love, not conquest." The remaining raiders broke and ran, their leaders cybernetics sparking and failing as Nova's energy overloaded them. Within minutes, the temple stood in peaceful silence. Once more, surrounded only by disabled vehicles and the vast, empty desert, Nova collapsed into Jackson's arms, their power spent, but their smile radiant. "We did it," they whispered. "We did," Jackson agreed, holding them close. "But what now? You said we'd rebuild the world?" Nova looked up at him with eyes full of love and determination. "We start small. We find others who believe in something better. We use the temple's technology to bring life back to the wasteland." They paused, their hand finding his cheek. "We have children who carry both our bloodlines, human determination and alien abilities." Jackson felt his heart soar at the vision. Nova painted a new beginning. "The beginning we both deserve," Nova confirmed, sealing their promise with a kiss that lit up the temple one final time as the sun set over the wasteland. Two figures stood silhouetted against the glowing temple, no longer survivors, but pioneers of a new age. The desert that had taken so much from both of them would now witness their love transform it into something beautiful. The last survivor had been saved. But more than that, two hearts had found their home in each other, and from that love would spring hope for an entire world.